How's it going, everybody? Now, as you can see, I'm doing something a little different today. But before we get into that, I want to assure you that I still have more bodybuilding magazines to go, some more martial arts magazines as well. And speaking of magazines, eventually I am going to run out. So, if any of you have any old bodybuilding magazines, bodybuilding in particular, martial arts magazines as well, but mainly I'm looking for bodybuilding. If you have any older bodybuilding magazines that you don't want, I was wondering if you'd like to donate them to the channel, particularly if you have some issues of Muscle Mag. Now, I have never bought one copy of Muscle Mag. For some reason, I just chose to stick to the weeder stuff, as well as muscular development, pumped, and muscle media. But mainly it was flex and muscle and fitness. So if any of you have any older bodybuilding magazines, 80s, 90s, 2000s, whatever you have, consider donating them to the channel. Okay, and if you're interested, you can contact me at dcpla91@yahoo.com. Again, that's dcpla91@yahoo.com, and I'll be sure to include the email address in the description. All right, the Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding by Arnold Schwarzenegger. I just wanted to deviate from the magazines today just to do something different. Now, some of you may have heard of this before, but the one you're probably familiar with is this one. All right, the new Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding. All right, and this is vastly different from this one. This is the original, and I believe this one was published in 1985. The revised edition was published in the early 2000s. Can't exactly remember. But, to me, everything old is gold. From you guys, for you guys who are over 40, yeah, you'll see, the world keeps changing. And, to me, the world is freaking barely recognizable at this point. So, you're going to start to cherish the older stuff. So I really do prefer this one to the revised edition, although both are great books with a lot of interesting developments. Some misinformation, a little bit here and there, because they wanted everyone to buy this book. And they wanted everyone, look at this part, learning your body type. Ectomorph, mesomorph, endomorph. Yeah, that's something that people really do need to understand. And I do like the way that this book explains that, explaining how most people aren't pure ecto, meso, or endo. Pretty interesting, but they want everyone to feel enthusiastic about going to the gym. As I've said a multitude of times, they want everyone to feel included, so they kind of feed you a little bit of BS, because they aren't going to tell you that some people are genetically cursed and there's just no hope, so. And speaking of that, something funny about being a personal trainer, something I've noticed over the years is, oh, by the way, hold on. This book is a mess. Just bear with me, man. Look at this. This book is a mess, but it's pretty old, so but it's a mess. Not in the best shape. But something I've noticed over the years being involved in personal training is personal trainers, we often don't get to train guys with good bodybuilding genetics. That's a fact. The guys with good genes usually won't freaking go near you in the gym because, hey, these guys, they know it all. They know everything. You know, if you have above average genetics, and of course, if you have Ronnie Coleman genetics, anything from above average to Ronnie Coleman like genetics, man, you're going to see some results in the gym. And of course, as I've explained before, people go to the gym pretty much for one thing, and it's to alter their appearance. They want to be jacked, ripped, shredded, muscular, whatever the hell you want to call it. They want to change their appearance. That comes before bone density and neurology and neuroplasticity of the brain and, strengthening your tendons and ligaments. Most people, unfortunately, don't care about that. They want to change their appearance. So if you have above average to great genetics, that's going to happen with relative ease. If you have great genetics, no matter what you do, you're going to see a change in your body. I don't know how many of you have seen the documentary, what's it called? Pumping for the Gold. I saw it back in the, I don't know, late 80s, early 90s. I saw it on cable, back when I was a kid. But for those of you who haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. I mean, at least it was years ago. I saw it on YouTube for like the third time, maybe a year or so ago. So maybe it's still there. I assume it still is. Good documentary. And when it was shot, Lee Haney was the reigning bodybuilding god. And there's one part where they're talking to Mike Christian, who was one of his rivals. And Mike Christian said, Lee, and I pretty much quote, this is almost what he said verbatim. He said, Lee Haney is a genetic freak. No matter what he does, he grows. And, there's some people, there are a lot of people, well, I don't know about a lot of people, but there are some people who have those traits. Me, as I've said before, I'm definitely above average genetics. I'm no Ronnie Coleman, but I definitely can grow, and I grow easily. For most of my body parts, almost anything I do, I see a change. For most, not all body parts, but most of them. And so if a gym enthusiast or an exercise enthusiast goes into the gym, and no matter what they do, they see results, they're usually not inspired to seek out any instruction. Hey, look at me, I'm getting results. I know everything, And when I was at Tenley Sport and Health, which was my first training job, this was back in 1997, there was a guy that worked out there, a guy by the name of Steve. And I may have mentioned him before, I'm not sure. But Steve was probably in his mid-30s. I think he was a lawyer. And he just, worked out pretty hard. Had great genetics. He was noticeably muscular. You'd see him in the gym working out, and he, of course, get pumped up, because your muscles become engorged with blood. And you could see this guy had great genetics. But he did everything wrong. He did his exercises in the wrong order. His form and technique was just horrific. And he would make these stupid mistakes, like he trained his biceps before training his back, which is just egregious, man. You know what I mean? Because when you get to your back, your weak link has been made weaker. Your biceps are an assisting muscle group. That's why you tend to want to work the larger muscle groups and then work your way down to the smaller muscle groups. But he would just randomly go from movement to movement based on what he felt like doing in the moment. It's terrible. And, he was a pretty nice guy, because the trainers, myself included, would come up to him and say, man, Steve, man, you're killing me. Blah, blah, blah. The way you're doing this form, the way you're doing these lat pull downs, blah, blah, blah. And he was polite. He would listen politely and then just go back to whatever nonsense he was doing before. So that was that. And this continued, for months with him walking around looking all jacked, but still doing everything horribly wrong. And then one day he shows up. What the hell is this shit? One day he shows up. Yeah, like I said, this book is a mess. Well, I'm just glad it's still here. Frank and Christine Zane. One day he shows up, and he hadn't been there in maybe a month, and he was a little bit smaller. And you see him lifting lighter weights. He seemed to be in pain. Then he'd disappear, and you wouldn't see him for a couple of weeks, and then he'd come back, and he was even smaller. And he'd lift, seemed to be in pain, and he comes back, and he doesn't lift at all. He's just doing internal, external rotation. So the trainers could tell, yeah, he got injured. He suffered some type of overuse injury. What else is new? We all saw it coming. And he'd blown both rotator cuffs out. Both of his rotator cuffs were damaged. I don't remember if they were completely torn. I don't remember, but they were both shot. And all he was doing was internal, external rotation, and he totally shrunk. It got kind of circulated around the gym that look at this, man. It kind of circulated around the gym that he had screwed up his rotator cuff. And that was that, and he never regained the size that he had before. He continued to come to the gym, but he was never big and jacked anymore. And that's just kind of the point that I try to make with this channel. A lot of these guys, man, they don't think about what goes on underneath the hood. A lot of gym enthusiasts do not think about what is going on underneath the hood. Just imagine having a nice car, and all you care about is the detailing, the paint job, making sure that it's waxed really well, making sure there's a fresh coat of Armor All on the tires, making sure you have nice rims, but you're not concerned with the engine. You're not concerned with the oil. You're not concerned with getting a tune-up. You're only concerned with how it looks. But that's what these guys are doing. Most of these guys in the gym are only thinking about how they look. But there's a lot that goes on underneath the hood that can determine how long you're able to train. And a lot that goes on underneath the hood that can determine how intensely you train. But a lot of people think that it's going to be nothing but this upward trajectory or this forward trajectory of progress. Well, I'm a little bigger than I was last month. Oh, now I'm even bigger. I'm more shredded than I was 2 months ago. A month later, I'm even more shredded than I was a couple months ago. That's what they think is going to happen, and it really doesn't work that way. They're going to be setbacks. And even in this book, there's a chapter. I remember him, Bertle Fox, Chris Dickerson. There's a chapter dedicated to setbacks. Arnold once fell off a stage while posing. I believe that's what happened. And he suffered a severe laceration on his quads. And it's 1983 Mr. Olympia, Samir Bannout. He suffered a severe laceration, had to get stitches, and so he lost, a couple of inches on his quads, Lee Haney. And as far as the Hall of Fame, this is where it stops. because this is from 1985. So that's what's interesting about this. The revised edition goes far beyond that, obviously. They get into Dorian and Ronnie and everything. But anyway, he suffered a severe laceration on his quads. It's Arnold at 16. He suffered a severe laceration and couldn't train intensely. So he lost like an inch or a couple of inches on his quads. And that's a part of it that isn't talked about enough. And hell, a laceration, look at this. A laceration is really nothing compared to a torn rotator cuff. Torn rotator cuff, man. I mean, depending on how you rehabilitate it, I mean, you never may be 100% again, or the max intensity you're able to produce may be affected forever. So you guys have to think about that. There's more to it, and yeah, if you have genetics, if you have great genetics, it doesn't mean that you're going to have all the answers. If you go into the gym and you get results right away, it does not mean that you have all the answers. You still would benefit from an expertly designed routine, and also you will benefit from knowledge about various exercises, so that you won't suffer overuse injuries as easily. In other words, knowing a lot about this means that you can attack your deltoids in different ways, because if you like sit in the same spot on your couch all the time, you sit in the same spot, eventually you're going to end up with a dent in that part of the couch. So what people end up doing is they either sit on a different part of the couch or you just switch the cushions around. Okay. But that's what happens, man. You don't want to, you don't want to sit on the same spot on your couch all the time. So the more or if you're training with a trainer, I mean, that's what we offer, is just knowledge on just a multitude of different training ideologies. I mean, if a trainer is any good, man, they're going to have a lot of different training ideologies, and they're going to know a lot of different exercises. And as far as those individual exercises, there's going to be a multitude of different ways they can approach everyone individually. That's what we offer. In my opinion, it's program design, ahead with thousands upon thousands upon thousands of exercises. That way you're less likely to suffer overuse injuries. And, you're not making your weak link weaker, like Steve did, training his biceps before back, and then of course he'd go to back and he would train relatively heavy after annihilating his biceps. So he was headed toward some serious tendonitis in his biceps for that alone. So in my opinion, he got off lucky with just a rotator cuff issue or both rotator cuffs blown away. So, yeah, man, these are some great physiques here, man. I was always a big fan of Frank Zane. And you would never, look at this, Chris Dickerson, endomesomorph, ectomesomorph, classic endomorphic mesomorph, ectomesomorph, Frank Zane, yep, and endomesomorph. I wrote me, mesoectomorph. Yeah, I consider myself a mesoectomorph because I'm primarily an ectomorph, which is a skinnier guy, but I do have a considerable number of mesomorphic traits. Arnold was the opposite. He was an ectomesomorph because he was primarily a mesomorph, you know, muscular, but he tended to be lean, and he did have some ectomorphic traits. Ectomorph means slender, you know. So yeah, guys, if you have great genes and you go into the gym and you get results, don't make the mistake. Don't be a Steve. Don't make the mistake of thinking that you know everything just because you're getting results. I remember when I was at Tinley, I overheard some of these guys like talking shit about the trainers. You know, these trainers don't impress me. You know, and I heard someone, you know, because we're standing around. You know, we used to have to work fitness floor hours, meaning that you stand on the floor and you answer questions. You know, you give advice, you know, if people ask for it, or if they're doing something egregious like Steve did. I mean, you just give it anyway, even though they weren't asking for it. So you hear things. And we would hear guys, you know, trying to talk people out of getting a trainer. Oh, you don't need a trainer. All you have to do is come in and do this and do that, you know. And back then, people, and honestly, to this day, it still remains the same, but to a lesser extent. But back then, back in the late '90s, people didn't realize how much of a science this was, you know. And to some extent, that still exists, but not nearly as much. People, because of the internet, people are a little bit more educated. I always love partial reps. I'm a huge fan of partial reps. And I love multi-exercise sets. I'm a big fan of that. I tend to refer to them as compounding different exercises together, the compound philosophy. You know, you can get really creative with that, really creative with compounding. But yeah, you'd hear them trying to talk guys out of talk people out of training with trainers because they didn't respect the science and they didn't realize how much of a science it was. But you know, anybody who still thinks that in 2024 is just silly, because there's enough information on the internet, even though some of it is bogus. There's enough information on the internet, even on YouTube, you know. I mean, there are physical therapists on YouTube. You know, there are doctors on YouTube. You know, there's enough information to let you know that this is a real science. So I am happy about that in terms of progress. But simultaneously, I mean, this is cool. There's still more misinformation than ever, unfortunately. Arnold has some really high bicep peaks, man. I wish I was able to take better care of this book. It really is a mess. And Berto Fox, look at those traps. I think this guy deleted, I think you aren't allowed to use certain words on YouTube, but he deleted his ex-wife, or his wife or his girlfriend or something. And I think he was executed. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, Berto Fox, I believe he was executed for committing the ultimate crime. Lee Haney. His square shoulders combined with great deltoid development turn a simple pose into an awesome look. So, all right, we're at almost 25 minutes here. So I'm going to end this. And depending on how well this does, you know, maybe I'll do a part 2 to this. And if I don't, then I'll be back with more instructional videos and more magazines, because the deltoids are evident from the front, back, and sides. They play an important part in virtually every pose. For example, Dennis Tenerino doing a side chest shot. Yeah, that's true. You know, deltoids are visible in like every shot. And Franco Columbu. I always love that separation between upper and lower pecs, man. That's just, and again, you know, there'll probably be some dipshit on YouTube that'll put out a video detailing how you can get that separation between upper and lower pecs. Bullshit. It's just something you either have or you don't. You know, I'm sure every bodybuilder would love to have that type of separation, you know, but most won't. But yeah, man, that was really awesome. And most muscular pose by Franco Columbu. Yeah. All right, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and end it here because I can't go through this entire book. And, you know, I may end up doing this one. You know, like I said, it's different enough that it could warrant having a video made about it. So I'm just going to go ahead and stop here. And I'd like to thank you guys for watching. And I will be back with more information on the fitness industry, personal training, and strength training in general. Thanks so much for watching PLA Mind and Body Works. See you guys soon. Bye-bye.